Hello, everyone. My name is Ye-Chan Lim. I am a part of the Region 8 Clean School Bus team here at EPA Region 8. And we are very excited to hold this webinar with Woody from Havre School District to share his experience about Havre School District operating their electric school buses. To kick things off, I would like to send it over to our Regional Administrator, Casey Becker, for some introductory remarks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Casey Becker. I'm the regional administrator for Region 8. In Region 8, we have 6 states: Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. So I oversee all of our activity for EPA in those states. And I love that Woody is doing this with us today. I think one of the bipartisan infrastructure law that Congress passed about a year and a half ago, one of the things that I'm most excited about is the Clean School Bus Program. And we in Region 8 want to see more of our school districts apply for these grants because the way I see it is these grants have that triple bottom line to them. They save money for school districts. They help clean the air. They're good for specifically for children, and so you have just a multi-part benefit from these clean school buses. So we hope that this webinar will provide useful information for interested school districts and help to disprove some of the misinformation regarding electric school buses. Woody, I am just so appreciative that you're going to talk to folks about your experience because you in the Havre School District got 2 electric school buses. And I will just turn it over. Am I turning it back to Ye-Chan at this point? Or turn it over to Woody?
We'll be turning it over to Marissa. She'll be providing some high-level overview of the Clean School Bus Program and also the future funding opportunities. So, Marissa?
Thanks, Ye-Chan, and thanks, Casey, so much for joining us. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa McPhillamy, and I am also a part of the EPA Region 8 Clean School Bus team. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks again to Woody for sharing his time and experience in his running of his electric school buses in his school district. I want to provide a quick overview of some funding opportunities that EPA has under the bipartisan infrastructure law, which we refer to as BILL, under our Clean School Bus Program. EPA received $5 billion over 5 years in fiscal years 22 through 26 to replace existing school buses with zero emission and low emission school buses. And when we talk about low emission school buses under the Clean School Bus Program, we are specifically referring to propane and compressed natural gas buses. So in 2022, EPA released the first pot of funding in the amount of $500 million in the form of a rebate program. BILL allows EPA to prioritize certain applicants in the following manner: high-need school districts in low-income areas, rural, and tribal. Under the rebate program, applicants for new school buses that serve a school district that met one or more of these prioritization criteria received more funding per bus and also received preference in selection. There was overwhelming interest in the rebate program in the form of around 2,000 applications requesting nearly $4 billion for 12,000 school buses. At the end of the day, rebates were awarded for close to 400 schools at about $1 billion. So as Casey mentioned, within Region 8, EPA Region 8, we serve the states of Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming. And we were thrilled that EPA Region 8 received 19 selections for rebates. And at least one rebate was made in each of our 6 states, which was fantastic. And those resulting rebates were for 48 electric buses, totaling over $18 million. So as I mentioned earlier, there's 5 years of funding for the Clean School Bus Program under BILL, so we have lots of funding opportunities still to come. Specifically, EPA anticipates opening a grant program here soon in the spring, and then we will open another rebate opportunity in the fall of 2023. So if you're interested in learning more, please visit the Clean School Bus website, and we'll share that with all of you on the webinar here. And on the Clean School Bus website, you can find out more information about the program. You can view previous webinars. You can review frequently asked questions, and you can also sign up for the Clean School Bus emails. And those emails will provide you with the most current and up-to-date information on any funding opportunities that we have. So thanks again for joining us. We're really happy to have you. Thanks again to Woody, and now I'll turn it back to Yechon.
Thanks, Marissa. So we will be doing this webinar in two parts. The first part will be a moderated discussion between Woody and myself on some prefixed questions that we have discussed ahead of time. And then the second half will be an open Q&A with the audience. So if you do have any questions during the moderated discussion or the Q&A session, we ask that you put those questions in the chat. And then if you would like to ask the question yourself, we will ask that you raise your hand during the Q&A portion, and you will be called on, and it will allow you to unmute and ask your question. So we just want this experience to be interactive and to answer the burning questions that you, the stakeholders, have regarding electric school buses. So for the first half, it will be, as I mentioned earlier, it will be a moderated discussion between Woody and myself. So Woody, the first question is, can you describe a bit about your school district, where it's located, the different climate, kind of give an overview of where your school is located?
Sure, thank you. We're in north central Montana. We're about 30 miles from Canada, and we have a somewhat frigid climate in the winter. In fact, it's snowing right now, and we're not going to get a lot here today, but yeah, so we can get pretty cold. And we're a pretty small town, but we do have our fleet is 26 buses, 4 coach buses for activity trips, 22 yellow buses. 17 of those are diesels, 3 are gas, and 2 now are electric. We've got the first 2 in Montana. And we run 13 routes, in city routes and rural routes. And so that's, that was one of our biggest concerns when we were looking at them, was how they would act in the winter, because we do get below zero. And when I did a little research, I found that the company we went with was Lion, and they have good reports for running them in the cold. And we tried them out. It was been 25 and 30 below. We had them running, and they stayed warm. Windows stayed defrosted, and so they were very successful, in my opinion.
Yes, thank you for that. Can you kind of describe how this all began for you? What were the considerations for electric school buses? Where did this all begin? Where did this come from? Since you did mention you were the first school district in Montana to get electric school buses.
Yeah, well, we do have a regular. We replace our buses pretty regular to keep our fleet up and running. And when we were looking at buying 2 diesel buses, and then we discovered the Volkswagen settlement grant and administered through the EPA, and went with the state EPA. And that's where we started down that. And the more I dug into it, when we went and started researching the electrics just down that path, and with the grants that were out there, it was extremely affordable for us.
So those the Volkswagen diesel mitigation funds helped fund the school buses, which helped lower the cost to around the same level as a diesel school bus. Actually,
even farther. For what we paid, our share was pretty close to what we would spend on one diesel bus. We ended up with 2 electrics and the infrastructure for the charging. So
okay, great.
It was an incredibly good incentive. And
yeah, so when you were doing that initial research on looking into electric school buses, what were your original hesitations, and what did that research kind of uncover?
Well, one of the things, like I said, was the how they handle the winter. and the other one was a range. And so as I talked to the Lion, the bus company, they were, explained it. We went with 100-mile range batteries, which is the smaller of their packs. They go up to 150, and our longest route, AM and PM, is 80 miles. So, we were well in that. And they like I said, they do handled the cold real well. They do have a auxiliary diesel heater, a small gallon, about 15-gallon tank. So they do have some auxiliary heat, which also helps you extend your battery life because you're not burning off all of your electricity for heat. So that works well, and it does keep them warm. So those were the biggest concerns, and then just how they're gonna work out.
During those initial conversations, did you have buy-in from the school district? Were there any concerns from the school district or the school board or parents or anything like that?
The administration was full on board, school board and the administration, 100% behind it. And some of the parents there was a few skeptical, but for the most part, they were supportive. And the kids love them.
Yes, that's great to hear that the school board was supportive. I know some of those conversations could be very difficult to have, especially with a hesitant school board or hesitant parents. So that's great to hear that your school district was so on board with getting electric school buses. So what was that process like working with the school bus manufacturer? Did they help you kind of size the correct battery, the correct size? Did they do any route planning? Did they work with you through that process? What was that like working with the school bus manufacturer?
We were in quite a bit of contact with Lion, and yeah, we did. I showed them our routes, and they, we were looking at going with a bigger battery pack, and they said realistically you shouldn't need more than the 100-mile battery pack for what we're doing. And like I said, they were great to work with. Didn't have any trouble getting a hold of them, and they were back and forth. And then when we did get the buses delivered, we had a few more things to be installed on them that we ordered. They came out in the middle of Montana and installed the rest of the stuff. They brought out trainers, trained mechanic and myself on the buses. We trained the drivers. They spent time with our first responders and trained what the ambulance and fire crews, what they should look for if there is an emergency with one of the electric buses. So it was pretty good. I was pretty happy with them.
Yeah, that's great to hear that Lion was so great working with you and making sure that you weren't getting a larger battery that you didn't need, making sure that it met the needs of your school district and the routes that you guys have. So looking on the other side, on the utility side, what was it like working with your electric utility provider? Were there any unforeseen costs or roadblocks? And do you have any recommendations for working with your utility?
It was pretty seamless. We have the transformer capability. We had enough power in our building to put the two charging systems in that we have. So all we needed to do was an electrician to do the wiring. We had plenty of power, so there was really nothing we needed to do with the electric provider. In fact, we just had they came out and looked it over, and with the transformers we have, we could put 2 more charging systems in without being even taxing or overdrawing what we have. So we're set good there. That's
great. Kind of future-proofing if you need to expand that charging network at your school. Great to hear that the electric utility was so great to work with. So going kind of into the chargers, we've heard concerns about specifically charging during cold weather, and some people have heard that you cannot use level 2 chargers in the extreme cold. It will not charge the buses sufficiently. What kind of chargers do you guys have, and have you experienced any issues with charging the buses in the cold weather?
We have level 2 chargers, and No, we haven't had any issues at all. And they're inside a building, but it's not a heated building. And so as long as that they're plugged in fact, while they're plugged in during the cold, we have them set up to a half an hour before the route starts that the heaters come on and they do a preheat. So they are warmed up when the driver shows up. And as a matter of fact, in the cold, if you don't have them plugged in and you have them outside in the extreme cold below zero, it will void the warranty on them. So we haven't had any issues with the charging in the cold.
Okay. So when they're not in use, either in the middle of the day or at the end of the day, they're always plugged into those level 2 chargers and they're always charging.
We started out that way, and then as we talked a little more with Lion, and what we're doing now is we're pushing the limits a little, because one of our routes is 40, 45 miles, and the other one is about 30. So we're running the batteries down farther, and then it's more efficient that way because the regenerative braking charges the battery while they're rolling, and the farther down the battery is, the more regenerative braking kicks in. So we get a little more charge out of them that way, and it's a little more efficient. So now that it's a little closer to spring, we have been going without plugging them in, sometimes as much as a day.
Oh, wow. And you haven't had any issues with, range anxiety from the bus drivers or anything like that?
No. We set 25% for the don't go below 25%.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That you can use level 2 chargers in extreme cold. We've heard otherwise. We've heard information from both the bus manufacturers and what the schools have been hearing, saying that you have to go with a DC fast charger if you're in the cold. So that's great to hear that you guys are currently using level 2s and it's meeting your needs, more than enough meeting your needs. That's great to hear. So what have the school buses been like in daily use? What do the bus drivers think? Did they have to get any special training? And have you heard any feedback from students or parents regarding the electric school buses?
Well, we have two of them, and they're on a route, and they're dedicated to each route, so it's the same bus and same driver each day. And they both like them. They like them quite a bit. They have a heated seat for the driver. That's one thing, but and so that's good response there. And like I said, the kids like them. One of the things they're exceptionally quiet. So you can hear what the kids are doing back there. And the parents, I've got, a lot of people have asked me around town, how they're working out, and they're curious, but it's mostly supportive. There've been a few people that have kind of fallen down the misinformation trap, but I straighten them out if I can and let them know how they're really working, which is pretty good so far.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's always better to hear from someone who has direct experience rather than what you see online or what you hear from folks. So it's great to hear that the parents are getting on board and that you're helping to dispel some of the misinformation that's out there regarding the electric school buses. So we know that one of the great benefits of electric school buses is just decreased maintenance due to the more straightforward powertrain and then regenerative braking and lack of internal combustion engine. Can you kind of tell us what the maintenance has been like for these buses, and have you experienced the decreased maintenance costs so far?
Not so much. We've had them in, well, for 4 months now. And so we don't have real good data on that. We have some issues right now. They have some recalls on them from the factory. So we have one of the hydraulic pumps has come loose on one of them. And so for just to err on safety, we pulled that bus out of service until the Lion is sending somebody out here. They're flying somebody from Miami to Seattle, where they'll come out here and do all the repairs and the warranty bulletins. But so far the maintenance has been pretty. Yeah, that we haven't really had to do anything to them. One of the things is, there's a big cost over fuel, a big cost savings there. But that's the other thing that is going to be hard to really track is, there'll be less brake wear. We don't have a transmission flush. We don't have oil changes. That's a 17 quart oil change that we don't do every couple thousand miles. So a lot of those things will be interesting to try to keep track of and see how those pan out.
Yeah, that's great to hear that Lion sending out folks to do those recalls. I know, obviously one of the maybe, downsides of being an early adopter is that, they have to work out the kinks. So that's great that they're being so great coming out to your school district to make that repair. And, obviously, the different maintenance schedules that are going to follow from these electric school buses, hopefully that you will see in the coming years some significant savings from all the maintenance requirements for these electric school buses. And then you kind of touched on this earlier, but kind of looking at fueling costs, the cost of diesel versus electricity, what have you seen so far in terms of fueling costs?
And again, like I said, we're still getting a lot of the data compiled, but my rough math, it's about 13 cents a mile for electricity. And the diesel is about 38 cents a mile, and our gasoline buses is about 40 cents a mile. So that's pretty substantial. And, we're talking about 1,000 to 1,500 miles a month. So the savings should be pretty substantial for that.
Yeah, for fueling, yes. And I know you mentioned for when it was really cold, you guys kind of looked at the cost of fueling the electric school buses versus just like the engine heaters for your diesel buses. Can you kind of talk about that a bit?
Yeah, that's what some of the people were saying. Well, then you're still using diesel, but the comparison there is about 15 gallons a month compared to 200 to 300 gallons a month. So, we're not using very much diesel at all. And it's very efficient and effective for the heat.
Yes. So kind of going more in depth with kind of the cold weather concerns, both with, the decreased range during the winter time and kind of we've heard rumors that buses won't even start up, but that hasn't really been your experience. Can you kind of elaborate about, your experience, in the extreme cold when it has been below zero?
We didn't have any issues. They always start right up. It's a matter of, turning the switch and the electricity comes on. So there's, as a matter of fact, before we were fully ready to put them in service, we had to use one because of our other buses had froze up between gelling up with the diesels and the air. The service doors work on air, and we had some of those were froze up, so we needed to bring the electrics on. So yeah, they're so far looking like they're pretty much more efficient than the diesels as far as handling the winter. And there's been no issues whatsoever with starting them.
Great. And I know from this experience, you kind of talked about, kind of the future for you guys. Can you talk about, what the future plans are for in terms of electrifying your fleet? Are you interested in getting more electric school buses in the future?
Well, that's going to be up to you guys. No. Yeah, we are. I think we're looking at the round of grants coming up, and it depends. It really depends on what kind of grant funding is available, because right now they are very expensive, and it's roughly that the Lions are in the $300,000 to $350,000 range, compared to $130,000 for a Bluebird diesel. So that's substantial, and I'm sure they will come down too in price, as they sell more and the market works out. But so we do plan on doing 2 more, but I don't know how many more than that we would actually fit in. We're trying to just keep our fleet diversified, and one of the reasons is we're in north central Montana, and we'll go 320 miles for a football game and back. So right now the range isn't available on those for that. So for our routes, we can do that on the routes, but we also want to keep a little bit of everything going.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously electric buses aren't the, only solution to a more sustainable, future for school buses. And definitely the use case is going to have a direct impact on the type of school bus that you're going to have to use. But it's great to hear that, for the planned routes, for the city and rural routes that you're currently running, that electric school buses are a good option for you, and that you are wanting to get two more in the near future. That's great to hear. So throughout this process, do you, for the last, scripted question that we have, do you have any insights or recommendations for school districts that are interested in electric school buses?
Oh, absolutely, go for it. I mean, don't be afraid of the electrics, especially with the funding, because it made it affordable to experiment with them. And so far, it's been working out really well for us. And yes, they are expensive. And I've said before, it reminds me of when my dad bought his first VCR videotape machine. He paid $600 for it, and now and then when they went out, they were about $20 a piece. So, the market tends to bring them down. So I see that coming. I would hope to see that coming. So I highly encourage anybody interested to take advantage of the funding while you can. And then if it doesn't work out for you, you're not out as much. But so far they've been working great for us, and I would just highly recommend them.
Yes, I think that's also the hope of our program as well. The early adopters, it is expensive, and we want to help, offset some of those costs, but also as they do become more mainstream, as more, EV bus manufacturers come online, we are hoping that increased competition and the increased amount of money that's going into this program, that it helps to eventually bring down the cost of electric school buses to hopefully around, the cost parity between diesel and electric. I think we all would love to see that happen in the near future. So definitely, thank you for your insight. And now we'll open it up to Q&A with the audience. So if you are interested in asking a question directly, please raise your hand, and then we will call on you and allow you to ask your question in person. But also, if you do want to put your questions in the chat, we will be reading through those as well if you are wanting to ask a question in the chat. So one moment while I allow the attendees to now turn on their mics. One moment. Great. So yeah, if any of you have a question you'd like to ask directly, please raise your hand. And for now, we'll go through the chat and answer. I know there's been a few questions in the chat. Okay, it looks like we have a hand raised. Susanna? Susanna, are you able to unmute yourself and ask your question? Okay, let's not. So, sorry, Susanna, we cannot hear you. So we'll just currently go through the chat. Susanna, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please do. The first question that I could find is, could you please share the link to the website where the presentation will be posted? Yes, we will post that link in the chat. It's the same link that was used in the email invite. It's the epa.gov / Clean School Bus. It will be on that website under past webinars, but we could definitely put the direct link in the chat. The next question. Gabe asks, can you comment on whether you looked at other manufacturers as well as Lion? I think all manufacturers provide similar support.
We did. We looked at Lion, we looked at Thomas, at International, and Bluebird. We settled with Lion. One of the things was that it's a Canadian company, and they do now have a plant in the United States in Joliet, Illinois. But because they've been making school buses for 6 years, and before that, all they do is trucks and heavy equipment or electrics. So that kind of gave them a leg up in my book, because they were already pretty well established, where Bluebird International is what we use. That's what our other diesel buses and gas buses are. Well, they were more of a little kind of catching up, converting, their other buses to electrics, where, Lion had the jump on them. And they've all come along pretty well too, even in the past year. So, that we did check them all out, and they're all pretty comparable price wise. So, but Lion we liked their experience much better.
Yeah, definitely having experience with EVs definitely is a leg up, especially compared to the legacy manufacturers that are, yeah, as you said, just now getting on board with trying to convert their diesel buses to electric. So that's great to hear. Can you comment on Rosario asks, can you comment on how long it took to get the charging stations installed from the time you started working with the electric company to the time the stations were installed, up and running?
A day. We had the charging stations here. Electrician came in, and like I said, we had enough power here, so we put another individualized breaker box outside next to our main service and conduit over to the shop where we have those buses sitting. And the electricians came and they mounted them and wired them in. And yeah, it took about a day, maybe a day and a half, and they were up and running, programmed.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And did you guys order the charging station itself ahead of time? Or did Lion have recommendations for that?
Yeah, we actually ordered them through Lion.
Okay.
And Blink charging systems is, when we went on Lion's recommendation there with what they've had the best luck with. And we did have a failure with one of the charging stations, and within less than a week we had it replaced.
Oh, wow.
It replaced the whole system, so that was good.
That's amazing to hear. Yeah, we on EPA side, we always recommend reaching out to your utility earlier than later is better. Even if you're just interested in electric school buses and you're not sure, it's always better to talk with your utility earlier, especially if there are going to be upgrades that are needed on your side of the meter. So we always recommend you reach out to your electric utility earlier and to initiate those conversations early. Usually they will come out on, as Woody mentioned, they'll come out to your school and then evaluate whether your current grid can handle the electric chargers. And it's going to depend on the number of chargers you need and the type of chargers. As Woody mentioned, they have 2 level 2 chargers, but if your school district does end up needing DC fast chargers, those are going to have a higher kilowatt requirement from the grid, so that might have an impact down the line as well. So we always recommend reach out to your utility early and start that conversation, even if you're just interested in getting electric school buses and you're not sure yet. Always getting that information ahead of time is great.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah asks, can you talk more about the training that was provided for maintenance staff? Are your mechanics trained to work on the buses if there is a problem, or do you need to go through the manufacturer to get it fixed? We've heard that mechanics are worried about safety issues on the buses due to lack of access to training.
They spent probably about a day and a half with the mechanic and myself. The mechanic got the brunt of it, or the most of it, and I sat in on a lot of it. I do some of the work on them, but for the most part, the mechanic does most of the work in the shop. And yeah, they were extensive with it, and they went through a lot of things on what you need to do to work on it. What you'll need some special equipment. It's a good idea too. And our mechanic had reached out to some of his mechanic pals and has been working on EV stuff. The little things that you wouldn't realize. There's some shoes out there that you can get Nike makes them. The manufacturers are, the mainstream shoes make them, but they are non-conductive. And it's not so much the electrocution factor as the static that builds up when you're say underneath, and you're touching the bus a lot and in and out of the bus. And it's not anything life-threatening, but the static can be annoying when you just even the little zaps you get. And we haven't seen it yet on anything we've done to them. But little things like that, you find out with the networking. So, but there was extensive training with the mechanic, and they also set him up to where he can do the warranty work, or we can have them come out. So far, we're going to have them come out. We'd like to kind of watch their process on you decharge, you unhook the batteries, and just for safety. There's a lot of safety involved, but it looks pretty straightforward. And the batteries we have with this company has an 8-year warranty, so theoretically we shouldn't have to do anything while it's under warranty.
Yes. Yeah, great thing about, a lot of these electric school buses are that the batteries do come with a warranty. So I know a lot of people have concerns about, battery degradation as well, but, if it falls within that 8-year period, that it will be fully covered under that warranty, and they will replace it if there is a catastrophic issue with the battery and the degradation that occurs from those batteries. But as Woody mentioned, Lion has been around for a while working on electric vehicles. So they do have a lot of experience with, managing the battery health. Oh, great. Susanna, I see you have another question here. If you're able to unmute yourself now, we could try that again if you want to ask your question in person. Okay, I'll just read your question out loud. Yes, I would like to know more about budget for maintenance and startup costs for training, etc. What does the timeline look like?
Well, there wasn't any budget with the training. That was the manufacturer, Lions. That was provided. They came out and provided all that. So we didn't have any budget to speak of for training. And so, that was really a non-issue. And what was the other part?
Maintenance costs and costs for training, and then what does the timeline look like?
Well, the timeline, I guess once we got the grant, it was 9 months maybe before we took delivery on the buses. So essentially pretty close to the same as buying a diesel bus. So right in the ballpark, same.
Okay, great. So from, submitting your purchase order to getting the buses, was that around 8 to 9 months?
Right.
And then in terms of installing the charging, when did that occur within the 9-month time frame?
Towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as we about the same time we got the buses delivered, the charger showed up. So
great.
So it all coincided.
It's great to hear. It looks like we have a hand raised from Kip. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure, thank you. I hope this isn't a question you already covered, but how many buses did you purchase, and how many is your total fleet?
We purchased 2 electrics, and our total fleet is 26 buses. 4 of those are MCI coach buses, and 17 are diesels, Bluebirds. We have 3 gas buses and then 2 electrics now.
And have you looked into a vehicle to grid at all, or has that been a selling point?
A vehicle to grid?
Yeah, when you can actually put power back into the grid, that you're not, during the summertime, particularly when the buses are not being used, they can actually produce some power that can go back to the grid at a higher rate because it's during air conditioning time.
We haven't looked at that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have thought of it for if we do lose our power, we could use the buses to open the electric doors to get the diesels out.
Yeah, right. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I know vehicle to grid is a new technology that's I know we've been talking to a couple of utilities, and it seems like there's a couple pilot programs going on, looking at vehicle to grid, providing energy to the grid during when the buses are sitting there, usually in the middle of the day and overnight, and then recharging them when there is low demand on the grid, and then kind of an incentive program, a financial incentive program to kind of help offset some of the costs of the electric school buses as well. But so far that we've heard, those are currently in pilot programs, but hopefully as this program develops and there's more electric school buses on the road, there will be some more established programs, so that will also help offset some of the costs of the buses. A question from Bill. Do you use your buses in the summer? And if you do have AC, how do you have AC and how does that affect battery life?
Our electrics don't have AC. The only bus we have with air conditioning is a special needs bus. Some of the special needs students can't control their body temperatures, so we have one bus with air conditioning just for that purpose, and so the other ones don't. It's not much of an issue. We don't do much in the summer at all, and so it's warm in the beginning of the year and the end of the year, but we don't use air conditioning.
Great. It looks like there's a question from Sula. At one time, Line was not compliant with the National School Bus Standard. Are they now?
They are. As far as I know, what we did is we gave them our state standards, which also comes under the federal standards. We gave them what the standards were that we needed to meet, and when we ordered the buses, and they were in constant contact with us through that process too. So they made sure that they had everything organized. And I think one of the requirements for the DEQ grant is that they are American made. And that also helps that they do now have a plant in Joliet, Illinois. So.
Great. Question from Juan. Do you believe over time, the range of the electric school buses will improve, especially with heat engines within electric vehicles, or are they limited as of now in cold weather?
It's hard to say, because the batteries will degrade. We know that's coming, but and then also again, the battery technology is running rampant. So I don't see. I think our batteries will be obsolete before their warranty is up, and there'll be a new technology coming out. Personally, so and as far as the improving the range, I don't know about that. Maybe just as we learn more about them and driving habits, where we utilize the regenerative charging and then just the driving habits, we may increase some of the range that we're getting, but I don't think it's going to improve any more than the established range.
Great. Yeah, as you said, battery technology is evolving so quickly that, by the time the 8-year warranty is up on your batteries, who knows what will be on the market at that point. But great. A question from Fairfield Public Schools. What kind of fire risk has been tested for the batteries? If there is a fire, what are the risks and processes for mitigating?
Well, according to Lion and everything we've looked into, the fire risk is minimal, however, not non-existent. So, and if there is a fire, and that was part of the training, because I sat in on the training with the firefighters too, and once it turns into a reaction with the battery fire, you really can't get it out. You just keep it cool with water until it burns itself out. And that doesn't sound like an ideal situation, but that's how it is. And so that it was good for the firefighters to come in and learn that too. But the gallons of diesel and gasoline in our building, so we'll always have a fire issue anyway. But the it's minimal risk as far as we can tell.
Great. Yeah, that's consistent from what we've been hearing as well. Gasoline and diesel, cars and buses and just vehicles in general are more likely and more prone to fires than battery electric vehicles. So, and then obviously that training that Woody mentioned with the fire department, kind of how to address if there is a battery fire, how to properly address that. I think that's great to hear.
And another thing along those lines too is the battery is underneath, and it's pretty well secured and pretty well protected underneath. And there's also a switch in the bus similar to like your airbag switch. So if you get into a wreck with the bus and it's a severe enough wreck to trip that, it'll shut the batteries down automatically. So that's another good feature too.
Yeah, the automatic disconnect in case of an accident. Yeah, that's great to hear. Maybe this is a question for Marissa. Can you talk through the grant application process? Difficulty timeline, are these grants reimbursement based?
Yeah, sure. So the first funding opportunity that occurred under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Clean School Bus Program was for rebates. We will have a grant program going forward, and then, as I mentioned earlier, an additional rebate opportunity later this fall in 2023. So speaking specifically to the first rebate opportunity, yes, reimbursement-based opportunity, grant or rebate applicants submitted the appropriate paperwork to EPA in terms of filling out the rebate application, some additional information. The rebate opportunity closed. EPA ran the lottery. I would say too this, or remind folks too, this was a lottery-based opportunity. The lottery was run, and then the selectees were notified. And then once the selectees received notification, they had a period of time in order to submit their payment request forms and also a purchase order for EPA's review. And then, yes, the funding for the buses and the associated infrastructure for electric buses, there was no infrastructure funding provided if you went outside of electric. So if you went in the propane or CNG realm, just infrastructure costs for electric, then those costs were provided in addition to the bus costs on a reimbursement basis.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. When will the next grant be open? The first grant announcement for this program is going to open very soon. It's going to happen in the spring of this year in 2023. So hopefully you'll be hearing from us very soon once that grant period does open. And then we're also expecting to have another rebate program this year in the fall of 2023. So we're planning on having both a grant and a rebate program in 2023. Can you tell me what the status of the schools that are on the wait list, and if those on the wait list still need to submit applications for the payment request form? That wait list is managed by our headquarters office. So if you would like updates to that, I would recommend reaching out to the cleanschoolbus.epa.gov email address and asking. But currently, that payment request form is only for selected school districts that have been selected for the 2022 rebate program. So if you are on the wait list, you do not need to submit that form by April 28th. Looks like Lori has said that option does not exist in Montana, the vehicle to grid, that is. So seems like at least in Montana, that's not an option right now.
We catch up.
Great. Yes. Great. Looks like there's a question from Angie. The problem is the 2022 EPA funding was not sufficient to cover the cost of bidirectional charging stations and other equipment necessary to be procured by school districts. Does EPA plan to offer additional funding opportunities for vehicle-to-grid charging solutions in 2023 round of funding? We have school districts that are interested in pilot programs with our utility in Texas and in New Mexico. This has definitely been brought up that the funding for the 2022 rebate program was not sufficient. If you do have any feedback on our program, we would highly recommend you reach out to the cleanschoolbus@epa.gov email address and provide that specific piece about additional funding for bidirectional charging. We are considering all recommendations and feedback from this past round of funding to make improvements to the future rounds of funding. So we would definitely recommend you reach out to the EPA.gov, or sorry, cleanschoolbus@epa.gov email address and provide that recommendation. And then for Bill has a question: are insurance costs higher or lower for electric school buses than diesel?
I'm not sure. We have, we just cover the fleet. We're through the school. We're not contractors, so we just have our fleet coverage.
Okay, great. How did you get such strong administration and school board support? Whose idea was it initially?
Well, it was, for one of the things is we had an assistant superintendent that also has a CDL and passenger endorsements and school bus endorsements. So he's kind of on the bus driver's side to start with. And basically it came down to, we got 2 buses for the price of 1. I think that was the big thing that had the school board on board was, well, we could save some money, then let's do it. So that was a good, we're lucky in that aspect.
Yeah, definitely. It's good. Yeah, I mean, money talks, and it was great that you can get 2 electric school buses for the cost of 1 diesel. It looks like Kip has their hand up. If you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering whether there was any discussion, Woody, about putting a transponder onto the bus, the 2 buses, so that they could send back some information regarding miles per hour and other data that you could use to evaluate how they're doing.
Mm-hmm. We do all of our buses. We have Verizon GPS locators on all of them, except our new electrics. They came with, it's called the Lion Beat. So they have the telemetrics on board. So I could pull them up at any time. I can find out how fast they're going, how much charge they have. I can pull up how many kilowatt hours they've used. It's just a variety of information there. And so that's in place with the Lions.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That was just part of purchasing a school bus. You got access to all this data.
Right.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know we're coming to the end of our scheduled webinar time, but maybe in the future we can have a follow-up conversation and webinar regarding, maybe a few years down the line, how they've been holding up and your experience from there and the lessons learned. It would be great to catch up with you again and follow up from this webinar.
I'd like to. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to. Somebody had commented, I saw from Fairfield, or had a question, which is just down the road from us, actually, in Montana, and I believe they're going down the path and going to be getting some. And I just want to offer it. Don't hesitate to call us. You can call us up, the Havre Public Schools, and we've had some other people from around the state come up and check out our buses. And if you want to come, it's only like 150 miles or something. It's if you want to come over, you can come over, and we'll show you the buses. Let you take one for a drive if you want.
Yeah, 150 miles in Montana. That's nothing, right?
Yeah, you go that far for lunch.
Great. Thank you so much, Woody. And we're going to have our Air Division Director, Adrian, provide closing remarks for us.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you both to the Clean School Bus team in the Air and Radiation Division, but also to Woody for your time here today. We really appreciate it. This has been, I think, super informative for everybody who has been on the line. If there's somebody else who you want to make sure hears this same information and message, worry not. We have recorded it and we'll be posting it on our website. And so you're always able to watch this or go back if you forgot to take notes on something and I'm trying to remember, it will be on our website. We are hoping to provide some more information in the coming months on the next round of Clean School Bus funding. So there will be a round of grant funding later this spring, as well as a second rebate program coming up again in the fall. So there are more opportunities to get funding to replace your school buses. And hopefully we have that information soon and we'll be sending it out as soon as we have it. We're always happy to answer any questions that you have. So please feel free to utilize us as a resource. And, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.